autism. We all are pretty much aware of autism, but we just want to make people understand that individuals living with autism are people too. They're people first, and we need to accept them and integrate them and include them into our spaces and our worlds at every level. And so I think going forward, I think it's going to be called Autism Acceptance Month, but I have to get confirmation on that. I've heard a couple of people refer to it as that. So we got a jam-packed agenda tonight. Unfortunately, I had a guest speaker who is a dynamic young man who is living with autism, who was able to accomplish so many things during his lifetime up to this point. He is 28 years old. He was valedictorian of his high school class. He also went to Beacon College, where he got a degree in as well as serving on several committees for the District of Columbia, being appointed by Mayor Muriel Bowser. And so we were looking forward to hearing from him tonight, but I just got word that something has come up with him, and so he won't be able to attend tonight. But we also have our autism team, our school team, that's going to be talking about self-regulation within the autism program. And also we're going to hear from Joseph Shahadi on the Autism Waiver. But before I get too much into the agenda real quick, let me do what I'm supposed to do, which is introduce and welcome everybody and let everybody know that our meetings are recorded during the presentations. And then once we get past the presentations and get into public comment and questions, we typically turn our recording off so that we protect the privacy of any of our citizens or parents or educators who may have confidential concerns, so that it's not out there on the interwebs, anything personal that they want to talk about. And so tonight, like I said, we have a jam-packed agenda, and I just want to do some introductions real quick from our SECAC board. Sarah Whalen is actually not with us tonight. She's our vice chair, but we do have Jamie Afonso-Kumo, who is our secretary. We also have Jeannie Payne, who is our treasurer, who is not on camera because she's dealing with a cold right now. We also have Pam Talley, who is on. She's our community outreach manager. And I'm not sure if Io Bello is on yet or on tonight. I don't see her yet, but she's also a part of our SECAC team as well. And also we want to introduce our PGCPS advisors. We got Chanel Bowman, who's the associate superintendent for the Department of Special Education. We have Karen Andrews, who's our coordinating supervisor for the Department of Special Education. Marcy Tershon, who's our program coordinator for family engagement. Miss Yvette Young, who's a social worker with our Family Support Center. And I don't see Dr. Diate on, Beth Diate, who is instructional specialist for the family engagement as well, but I don't see her on as well. But I want to welcome everybody to our fourth Tuesday of the month meeting. Again, we have a jam-packed agenda. We're going to jump right into our presentations. And so our first presentation is going to be from our autism team, which is from PGCPS, and that is about supports for self-regulation within the autism program. So Marcia, I'm going to turn it over to you and our PGCPS team. Also, for our Spanish-speaking attendees tonight, we do have interpreters on this Zoom call tonight as well. And so feel free to utilize those services as well. And so we also have an interpretation button at the bottom of your Zoom link where you can click on the option for Spanish or English. And Marcy, take it away.
Hey, Marcy, you want me to go ahead and get started?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Jennifer Brown, and I am the supervisor of special education programs for the Department of Special Education and PGCPS. Those include the autism program, our community referenced instruction program, the regional program, and the extensions program. And we really appreciate an opportunity to share some information with you this evening. Before we get started, I have several of our autism team members out of the K-12 instruction office with me. We had to kind of divide and conquer tonight because we're also doing some training with teachers in another meeting. So team, if you would go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yvonne Aline. I'm instructional specialist for behavior supports.
Good evening. My name is James Webb. I'm instructional specialist for autism.
Hi, good evening. My name is Debbie Perhatch, and I am the twice exceptional autism resource teacher.
Thank you. I think that's everyone on with us this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and start our presentation. There we go. All right, so we're going to spend a little bit of time and review supports for self-regulation that are built into our PGCPS autism program. Part of the focus of this is to kind of wrap up the development of the sensory calming spaces in our autism program schools. We've been working on those the last couple of years. Unfortunately, with COVID and school closures, we were not able to do the ribbon cutting events that we had hoped to do at the schools as these spaces were open, but we're hoping this evening that you'll get to see what a fabulous resource this has been as they have opened across the district. As always, we would like to thank our Board of Education for their support of our students, families, and staff. So this evening, we're going to very quickly give you a virtual tour of the autism program sensory calming spaces. We have voices from the field for you to hear. So it's not just us talking to you, but voices from some of our program staff members who will talk about the benefits of this resource in their school. And we have a recording from one of our students in the high school program. And with that, we're going to just start with just a few slides giving you some visuals from schools across the district's calming spaces. All right, so those are just some quick views from multiple schools across the district. As you might have been able to tell from some of those snapshots, the room setups have a lot of common features. There is some differentiation depending on the size of the space at each school. And of course, we sought input from school administration and teams when ordering the materials and equipment for those spaces. Next up, we have a recording from Anna Haskell and Lisa Melanchuk, two of the occupational therapists that work for the district and who support our autism programs. We're just going to give a quick overview of the PGCPS sensory calming rooms.
An overview of the Prince George's County Public Schools sensory calming rooms, presented by Anna Haskell and Lisa Melanchuk, PGCPS occupational therapists. First, we'd like to acknowledge and thank the Prince George's County Board of Education for their commitment to providing a great education that empowers all students and contributes to thriving communities. Objectives for our overview of the sensory calming rooms. Explain why our students need self-regulation supports. Learn what resources are available in the sensory calming room to teach calming strategies, and understand how students use calming resources to be available for learning.
The development of self-regulation skills is very important. We know that students with autism often have anxiety and frustration that interferes with their ability to effectively participate in their learning environment. As a result, it is important to provide them with opportunities to learn, to manage, and to cope with their stress so they are able to access and participate in instruction. In addition, self-regulation is an important life skill that helps students develop self-awareness by learning to identify their feelings and appropriate coping strategies. Identifying appropriate self-regulation strategies also promotes independence with managing social emotional challenges throughout life. There are many resources available in the sensory calming room. Here's a visual example of some of the items you would see in a PGCPS calming room. All of the items and the setup of the room creates a place where sensory-based experiences are provided for a student to self-calm in order to be ready to learn. There are also visuals available in the sensory calming room. The zones of regulation, which is a framework and easy-to-use curriculum for teaching students strategies for emotional regulation and self-management, uses 4 colors, blue, green, yellow, and red, to help students identify how they are feeling given visual models of emotions and level of alertness. Inside the sensory calming room, there is also a first then visual, a timer, and a sign-in data collection sheet. Some additional equipment that you would see in a sensory calming room includes fidgets, as shown here on the right, a pea pod or canoe, a squeeze machine, as shown here on the left, a bubble tube, a jumping tube, a weighted blanket, a crash pad, as well as other visual and auditory resources. How students use the sensory calming room. School team members identify when a student shows signs of frustration or anxiety, which prevents them from effectively participating in the classroom learning environment. A school staff member assists the student to the sensory calming room. Students can also independently request to use the sensory calming room. It is very important to note that the sensory calming room is used before aggressive or uncontrolled behavior is exhibited by a student, as this area is not safe for students who do not have control of their body and appear in the red zone.
The sensory calming room is not an indoor recess, classwork, or homework location. It is not a replacement for a crisis room. If the student is harmful to themselves or others, or has no self-control, this space might be unsafe. And it is not a reward for good behavior. The sensory calming room is what a student needs, not what a student earns. Having a sensory calming room allows us to collect data. The following information is obtained from the sensory calming room sign-in sheet: the date and time of use, zone color upon entering the room, reason for coming to the room. Also, we can indicate if the student requested to use the room on their own, equipment used in the room, and zone color upon leaving the room. School team members collaborate, monitor, and analyze data on the effectiveness of the sensory calming room for each student. Additional data that may be gathered from the sign-in sheets include the triggers that led to the student's behaviors before entering the calming room. How much instructional time is being missed? How is the calming room benefiting the student? And is there a pattern to when the student is needing to use the calming room? In closing, here are some key points from the overview of the sensory calming rooms. Sensory calming rooms are an intervention for students who display difficulty participating in the classroom learning environment. And the sensory calming room is a place where students are able to use calming resources to self-regulate in order to return to the classroom for learning.
This concludes our overview of the PGCPS sensory calming rooms. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a couple video clips done by school team members who are going to talk a little bit about the spaces in their school and the benefits to their students.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Edwards. Here at Kenmore Middle School, I'm going to be sharing with you how we support students with self-regulation through our academic resource curriculum. And also through the use of our calming room. So first, through our curriculum, we definitely use journals. So students have an opportunity to write ways and strategies.
Marcy, I don't know if it's my connection or if it's the video. I'm going to try the next video and see if that one plays a little more
And
smoothly.
if not, I can share, Jennifer, and then we can
Okay,
try.
let's try the other one, and if it works, we won't worry about it, but
Hi,
oop,
I'm Mrs. Edwards.
let's try.
Hi, I'm Joseph Mitchell, and I'm on the autism staff at Kenmore Middle School. I'm going to walk you through some of the items we have here in our calming room. Okay, we come over here. This is our light up jellyfish chair. It's a beanbag chair. It has light up strings for the kids to look at. And I think it's really cool. It helps you to relax while also looking at some cool colors. It's right next to our mirror as well. Before we move on, I want to bring your attention to our check-in, where kids can come in, write down their name, and they can also tell what zone they're in. And kids will also check out here. So they'll say what zone they're in when they come in and how they're feeling or what zone they're in when they leave. Right here we have projection. If you can see it, some cool ocean visuals. And we also have a CD player that's playing some ocean sounds in the back. They're also very, very calm. You may be looking at what I'm talking about. These are lily pads somewhere where kids can jump on and they can look at the different colors move around. Okay, so here is our crash pad. Kids can come here, jump on it, maybe not too hard, but jump on it and relax from a tough or stressful day. By the way, we also have nice posters around the room that have directions for all of the different activities that kids can do. So right now, we also have some cool down strategies that the kids can use while they use the crash pad. Next up, I think this might be our kids' favorite item in the common. This is the Steamroller. So this is a machine or item for the kids to go through. They can put their hands in, or they can put their whole bodies, but it creates a nice sense of pressure or sensory feeling for the students. And I would say that a lot of our students love this item the best. Here we have our hopscotch wall lights and that. Here the kids can come and jump on or step on the different colors for hopscotch, and also hear very cool strategies on how to relax or calm down. Okay. I think this might be my favorite item. This is our bubble tube. Here is a nice soft cushioning chair
Thank you, honey.
that's also featured next to a bubble tube that the kids will look at that also changes colors. Next is our jumping tube. This is where kids can come, jump on the tube, and play around maybe. Usually when we have kids come in, they don't come in with more than two kids at a time. So this is an activity that they could do or more than one person can do. Next, we have our rocking chairs, 2 different colors. We have another chair here for kids to relax on that has different balls in it. I think the last item we have here is our shelf for exhibits and things like that for the kids to use. A lot of sensory items here. We have a lot of our kids love phone. We have whistles and everything here. So I think this is a really cool substitute for some of the items. If the kids get tired of using any of these, they can come over, grab some of these, maybe take one from the class for their need. And I think that is it. So I hope you enjoyed all of our items in our comments.
All right.
Hi, I'm Joseph Mitchell,
And our last voice from the field is our student, Matthew Deleon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Crum, and I am with the I am an autism instructional specialist with Prince George's County Public Schools, and I am here to welcome a former student of mine. Could you tell us your name, please?
Hi, my name is Matthew Deleon. I met Miss Jessica when I was 4 years old.
Great. So where do you go to school now, Matthew?
So I go to Largo High School. I am currently in 9th grade.
Neat. Okay. Oops. Okay, so let's see. How long have you been in our Prince George's County Public School autism program?
I have been in the autism program ever since the start of my Kenilworth years, since kindergarten.
Okay. And before you were in kindergarten, you were at
I was with you in Wheatley.
Yep, H. Winship Wheatley. Right, good. Okay, so how has the autism or the Prince George's County Public School autism program helped you in your academic career?
The autism program helped me by giving me patient and smart teachers. My teachers helped me deal with socialization, managing my anxiety, and modulating my voice. They also helped me make sure that I am on task so that way I can finish my work on time.
Amazing. Okay, so in the time that you were at Kenilworth and at Kenmore, and now you're at Largo, have you ever had the chance to use the sensory calming room?
I have. I used it whenever I'm angry, and so that way I can just be alone and then contemplate everything. I also use it whenever I need a break from noise.
Okay, great, because it's nice and quiet in there. Is it help you with that?
It helps me like push everything away and then like redirect back into mainstream.
Gotcha. Okay, wonderful. So did you find the room helped you to be ready to learn? So after you utilized the calming room, did it feel like it helped you, as you just said, redirect yourself and be ready and available for learning?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it has. The sensory room helps me to calm my nerves and clear my mind from everything.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Matthew, for answering those questions with me today.
You're welcome.
All right, so that's the end of our presentation. Since I know we have just a couple extra minutes, I do want to share that there have been a lot of other exciting areas of growth within the autism program. We're expanding the crisis intervention resource teachers in our elementary school programs, and also support from program coordinators across several of our larger programs. And so hopefully we'll have another time to come back and bring you more updates and information, but we're really excited about what's happening, and we're really appreciative of all of the team members, especially our student and staff team members and related service partners who helped put this presentation together for us. They are really what make the program so successful. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to respond to them.
All right, Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown, I do have a question. With the sensory rooms, right, in combination with CIRT, Crisis Intervention Resource Teachers or training, how is that impacted, like things like suspension and things of that nature? Have you guys seen a reduction in suspensions for behavior based on the new sensory rooms and the CIRT training, or are you guys collecting data on that?
So I'm going to give you a qualitative answer rather than a quantitative answer because I don't have hard numbers to respond to that. I think one of the challenges we have this year is returning to in-person learning has kind of thrown the curve off for that. So we would be comparing this year to a year and a half prior of virtual learning. And many of our students did not return until the end of January. The parents opted to continue virtual learning until all of the K-6 students had to return. But I can tell you kind of qualitatively or from the anecdotal information that we're receiving from our school teams that it is having a positive impact. Our CIRTs, our crisis intervention resource teachers, kind of have a dual role. They are providing direct instruction to all of the students in the program and social emotional learning lessons. And we use the Rethink curriculum for that. And I just had the opportunity this morning to visit Rosaryville's program and to sit in a 5th grade class and see the SEL lesson that was being provided by our CERT Kyra Terrell at that school. And it was really just a really positive and amazing experience to see how well the students responded to the topic of respect and honesty that was being presented today. Having a space, as you heard from all of the different video clip presenters, for students to go to and to de-escalate and to utilize those strategies before they reach that red zone or before they reach that point where, we're really dealing with maybe more of a crisis or potential crisis, I think has had a significant positive impact. So we are definitely keeping an eye on the data, but we don't really have a good comparison of this year to previous years. It'll be more this year to next year, as we're comparing in-person to in-person learning.
And just to add anecdotally to what Jennifer was saying is that what's been happening, having the CERTs in our buildings, they're almost like the last line of defense where they're able to pull the students and really work with them if they're having really significant challenging behaviors versus possibly in the past, the teachers may not have been able to deal with and manage when the behaviors have significantly increased. And so our CERTs are able to really support when the student is very, very escalated.
I did see a question in the chat as well regarding, I think from Ms. Carter Johnson, how do students in younger grades use the calming room if they can't ask for access? So what we do, and I think we mentioned it a bit in the presentation, the sensory calming room is used as a proactive approach. So those students who have a high level of sensory regulation challenges, and again, teachers, you do start to know your students at a certain point in time, who really benefits from having access to that space. So that is a schedule is developed. And I mean, we have a very in-depth training that Ms. Melanchuk, along with a lot of our other OT colleagues, developed in order to really detail how that looks as far as the scheduling process and making sure students who are prone to having those challenges have access to the space. So that is in their daily schedule.
Okay. I think we got a couple more questions in the chat. One is, how many schools in the county have autism programs? and how many schools actually have sensory rooms?
So there are 22, I believe, schools with autism programs. There's 17 elementary, 2 middle, and 3 high schools. And I think that was a specific question about high schools with autism programs. The high schools are Largo, Parkdale, and Surrattsville high schools. And all of our elementary programs have sensory calming rooms. One of our middle schools and one of our high schools have sensory calming rooms also. One support that has been provided to our secondary schools that have not yet been able to find a space for a sensory calming room is that we have provided the students in those schools with individualized sensory calming kits. So we've, some of those items that you saw in the Kenmore video and the little cubbies where the students could pull, we created little kits with some items that can be kept at a desk or held in their hand to help with that. And one of the other strategies that we use in some of the schools is to have something like a reset corner or just an area in the room where students can kind of have a timeout to engage in some of those self-regulation strategies that they've been taught.
Okay.
We also have two additional autism programs at our extension programs with autism extension programs for our students with significant cognitive disabilities and autism. So we have 2 programs that also have sensory.
So Ms. Brown, you mentioned 17 elementary schools. Does that include the early childhood spaces as well?
No, those are K5 or K6 schools. And I'm going to tell you that I don't know for certain if there are sensory calming spaces in our ECC schools. I don't know if, Ms. Johnson, if you have any information about that, I do not.
I believe that where they have spaces, I think in terms of whether they've formally developed calming rooms, I don't know if they have begun to do that yet, but they do have sensory calming spaces where they integrate through the multidisciplinary approach. But we have really focused on making sure that we've done that across the K-12 continuum, because within the early childhood programs, it is embedded in their multidisciplinary approach to instruction. And so those students really come with getting that through many avenues within the various curriculum as they move through, whether it's through speech or the collaboration with related service providers and their occupational therapists. So it's a part of their instructional program.
Yep, and I would just add, thanks so much, Ms. Johnson. Yep, she's right on target. They call them calming corners. So in early childhood, every classroom as part of their curriculum and instructional program have to designate a space within the classroom environment. They call it the calming corner. So they may have things, if you've ever been in an early childhood center recently, you'll notice that they have like a little tent set up, and that's kind of their calming corner. They don't have separate rooms, but every classroom within the ECC does have that calming corner set up with similar things that you might have seen. They may have a bean bag, they may have some fidgets, that are developmental appropriate, and the occupational therapist also works with those teachers, as Ms. Johnson indicated, through that multiple disciplinary approach.
And I see that there was a request in the chat box for the program location document, and Marcy went ahead and added that for everyone.
Okay.
Were there any
Does anybody have any more? Does anybody have any more questions for Ms. Brown and her team? If not, we will move on to our next presentation, which is the autism waiver. Does anybody have any final questions?
I do have a request in the chat to go ahead and bring that program location document up. So right before we get into our next presenter, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Give me just one second for me to share my screen. Okay, this is our 2021-2022 program location. Let me see if I can make that a little bit bigger. Hopefully you all can see that on the screen.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Marcy. And thank you, Ms. Brown and your team for the great presentation, great information. I think Marcy might have placed the link to what you just saw on your screen in the chat. Is that correct, Marcy?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure you copy that link out from the chat or go to that link in the chat so you can get that information up. And so now we're going to turn it over to Mr. Joseph Shahady, who is the Autism Waiver Program Manager for Prince George's County Public Schools. And he's going to talk about the Autism Waiver. Mr. Shahady, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson. I appreciate that. Yeah, as Mr. Sampson said, we are here to talk about the Autism Waiver. And as I scrolled through everybody here, I did see some familiar names. So that's always good to know, and that we have some folks that are coming in that know about the waiver a little bit, or are participating in it, or just starting the process. I saw some names of everybody in all those categories. And that was a great interview from Matthew, who I know, and that was a lot of fun to see. So thanks to Jennifer Brown and her crew for putting that together. That was really cool. So we'll start talking about the Autism Waiver here. As you can see, is a Medicaid home and community-based waiver for children with autism. Yep, and there's the thank you for the board slide there. The Department of Special Education would like to acknowledge and thank Prince George's County Board of Education for their commitment to providing a great education that empowers all students and contributes to thriving communities. So we always want to thank everybody for that. Our outcomes today. So hopefully we will gain a little bit of knowledge about the Autism Waiver Program. I know people hear about it, and sometimes it feels like a rumor, and sometimes it feels like no one will ever get it, or how to get it, or how to get on the registry. But hopefully I'll answer all those questions today. And that leads us into the other outcome that at the end of this, we'll ask some questions, and hopefully I have answers. All right, so what is the Autism Waiver? It's a medical assistance program, so it's funded through Medicaid. It doesn't mean that the student has to have Medicaid to begin with. That leads us into the second bullet point there. Waiver for any waiver program, including our Autism Waiver, means that the income is only applied to the individual, and our individuals applying are our students. So typically the financial aspect of Medicaid is not something that is a barrier or a hurdle for our applicants. And any eligible person receives home and community supports as an alternative to an institutional placement. So when you're dealing or talking about Medicaid programs, they are typically, at least the community-based Medicaid programs, they're typically an alternative to a more restrictive environment. So as the Autism Waiver Program is an option for a less restrictive at-home environment for those who are eligible. So we'll go through some of the eligibility criteria. Technical eligibility will be our first slide, and you can see some of the items there on the slide. You have to, of course, live in Maryland. This is a Maryland Medicaid waiver program. You have to be school aged, which is age 1 through 21, and so long as you're in school. Diagnosis, I will throw in here, diagnosis is only important when it comes to the application time. I will get later in my presentation, we have a bit of a wait to get to the application time, but I wouldn't want anybody to not get on the waiting list if they're not diagnosed. It doesn't need to be, a diagnosis does not need to be in place in order to be on the waiting list or the registry. And again, all these are when we come to apply. You have to have an IEP or an IFSP. If I run into any little ones again, they can have an IFSP. You have to have 15 hours of special education per week in the IEP, and you cannot be enrolled in another Medicaid waiver. You cannot have two at the same time. However, if somebody comes up for the Autism Waiver application and they are in another Medicaid waiver, it doesn't make them ineligible for the Autism Waiver. They would just at that point in time have to choose which waiver they want to enroll in. And for those in the Autism Waiver program and currently receiving services, they have to utilize the program on a monthly basis. So this is what is referred to as a closed program. So it has a limited number of slots. And we want to make sure that everybody within the Autism Waiver program is utilizing it, because we have people waiting and they would like to utilize the program. Okay, the next eligibility criteria is what's referred to as medical eligibility, and it's a level of care. So in order to determine medical eligibility, we will perform a level of care document. That level of care will include discussions on activities of daily living, both basic, meaning like your self-care needs, and functional activities of daily living. That's where we get into the socialization, cognition, community understanding, things of that nature, and then maladaptive behaviors. So there are 3 areas that are evaluated on level of care determinations. Our level of care determinations are completed by a school psychologist, a Prince George's County Public School psychologist. We do them as team meetings that we feel like that's the most accurate way to do it and to involve the school team and to involve the parent. So we do ours as a team meeting that are led by the psychologist. And then the level of care must meet a certain criteria. That criteria must indicate an institutional level of care. I don't want that word the word institution to be a deterrent. That's a term that Medicaid likes to use. So they want to know why they're funding the program, and an institution is a trigger word at Medicaid for expensive. So that's why that word is in there. But it's not, if you feel like your kid wouldn't be in an institution, I wouldn't want anybody to not pursue the autism waiver based upon that term. And the last eligibility requirement is financial. Again, it only applies to our applicants. So we're talking about the students. We do a Medicaid application for every student, but the income that we put on the Medicaid application is only the student's income, which is typically close to 0, if not 0. And it'll be reviewed by an eligibility determination group at the state. And it says the asset allotment is $2,000 for each individual for the student applying. It depends. It's either $2,000 or $2,500, and it sort of depends on the individual. And I don't want to get too far into that, but essentially, we don't really run into this as a problem much. The kids most of the time don't have $2,000 in their name. All right, so if eligible and in the program, what are the services? They're listed right there. I'll give a brief synopsis of each service. First is Family Consultation. That's something that it can be utilized by parents if they need it to assist in either setting up a therapeutic environment in their home, or if they need some ideas on treatment plan goals. Family consultants are someone who has a qualified background and experience with individuals with autism to be able to provide the families with this input. Intensive individual support. This is a one-on-one direct care service to our individuals, to the students in the program. It's available for up to 25 hours a week of one-on-one direct care in their home and community, where we are focused on a treatment plan with goals and objectives. Those treatment plans are completely individualized and are going to direct it's going to be directed to things that the students need to be working on. Respite care, many of us or most of us have heard this term. We have respite care in the waiver. It's just an allotment of hours for families to utilize to give themselves a break or give the kids a break. And in the waiver, in the autism waiver, it's 336 hours annually. Therapeutic integration is our after school style service. For the parents who've heard this speech before, I know you're out there listening to me. I say style because it looks like an after school program, but it is available every day, 7 days a week, year round, not just after school, but it's the one service where kids go to a location and they're working on various group activities and engaging with each other in a therapeutic environment. Intensive therapeutic integration is the same therapeutic environment, but delivered at a one-to-one for our more intense kids. Environmental accessibility adaptations. This is an opportunity for the families in the autism waiver to make changes to their home in regards to safety. So we have contractors associated with the autism waiver that can make physical changes to home. It is a case-by-case basis, but of course, popular adaptations are locks and alarms and things of that nature for our kids who might have the opportunity to run. Residential habilitation is part of the autism waiver program. We have a few providers around the state that provide residential services. It's sort of like the last service that we would want to offer in the autism waiver program. We prefer to keep everybody at home and in their home school. But if a family feels like that this is something they want to pursue, we have that ability to do it in the autism waiver. Adult life planning is for our older kids that are transitioning into DDA services or adult services. We help with that transition to provide the family supports, information, and understanding of that process. And those are all the services delivered to the individual and the family. And the last information here on the slide is service coordination. So the families aren't on their own in the autism waiver program. We have full-time service coordinators dedicated to helping families navigate the program, the services, the providers, and just being there for our families when they have questions or they're in need. And currently we have a contract with the ARC of Prince George's County to provide that service coordination. And it's been a positive relationship over the years. The ARC also provides lots of other information and help to our families. But it is closely overseen. That contract is overseen by Prince George's County Public Schools, specifically me, and I work very closely with those service coordinators. All right, so I have a little autism waiver by the numbers. Some of these numbers are not all that positive. There's about 6,000 children on the registry list. I keep that number 6,000 or 7 because it moves every day. So it's somewhere around 6,000. It's a statewide wait list, a registry list, by the way. So that's just not Prince George's County kids, 6,000 Prince George's County kids waiting. I think I would have a tough time with that. The current wait to apply is about 8 years. I know that's really bad news, but we are getting kids in the waiver every day. The important part and why I like to do these presentations is that I want to make sure I'm really reaching out to the younger folks, and we need to get some kids that are younger on the wait list, on the registry list, because that way we're getting to them as young as possible. And right now, and again, this number is moving almost on an annual basis. The waiver serves 1,500 children statewide. You see some demographic numbers, and why I emphasize I want getting this information out to the younger group, because currently in Prince George's County, we have nobody age 9 or under in the autism waiver program. Recently, I've seen some 10-year-olds that have come up for application, which is wonderful to me. And again, this number changes every day. We are currently supporting 157 kids in Prince George's County on the autism waiver, but we're adding every day. Okay, the registry information is right there for you. It's a 1-800 number. You simply just call it and you give your name and address and telephone number, and it's really important to update that information if it changes. That is the information given to me whenever the wait is over, and if it's not accurate, it makes it a little more difficult to track families down and start the application process. And so it's important, and it's the same number to get on and to update and everything. And then once the wait is over, I would contact, or you could contact me or whoever happens to be doing my job at the time, or me, and we would start the application process. And then the parent must attend all the application meetings. It's a parent-driven program. The parent is an extremely important, if not the most important part of our program. and it is expected that they are a participant in every step of the way. All right, well, that's the end of the presentation. That's my contact information there. Feel free to reach out to me via phone or email, and I would be happy to address any questions now or in the future.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, we do have a couple questions. We got a hand up, and then we got a couple questions in the chat. One of them was, how do you confirm you were on the list? I think one of our parents might answer that question. A letter sent to you. Is that correct? How
So
do you
to confirm if you're on the list, you're going to want to call that 1-866 number to see if you're on the list, and where they can tell you where you are on the list, and that'll be the number to get that information.
Gotcha. And then we have another question. How are applicants selected?
So it's simply first come, first serve. When you're on the list, they just go straight on down the list in regards to when you signed up. And then we go through the application process.
Okay. Ms. Porterfield, you had your hand up. Do you want to take yourself off mute to ask your question, or you want us to go with the one that's in the chat?
That is my question that I put in the chat. Mr. Shahidi said there's only a certain number of allotments. And so in my experience serving in an autism program, I have seen a drastic increase with the number of students being identified on the autism spectrum or in autism. And I think that, the ratio of those accepted, she should be comparable to those who are in, particular programs or identify with autism. And so, was there a consideration for MSDE to raise the number if only 6,000 are permitted in? When is the State Department, or how can we advocate for the State Department to consider increasing the number that they provide that support and services to?
Yeah, you could reach out to the Maryland State Department of Education or your local representation. It is getting increased every year. It's 1,500 slots for the year for the state, which creates such the long wait, right? 1,500 kids. It is an intense program, but they've been increasing it every year. So that it's just a matter of reaching out to those who make decisions at the state level.
Right. And I appreciate that. And, just, speaking to even such a small group, on the Zoom this evening, if there was a countywide effort to do that collectively, group speaks volume. So maybe we could start that initiative within Prince George's County and create one type of script that we are all writing to the State Department or calling our constituents to voice our concern and get more students with services.
Yeah. And I would just add, Ms. Porterfield, I think a lot of it comes down, of course, to our elected officials, and particularly those that sit on the budget, the state budget committees in Annapolis. And we know that our legislative session is from typically January to April in Maryland. And so that's where that real big push, in terms of preparing for that legislative session to open between January and April, when they're looking at funding and allocating funding and resources. I do know that, over time, as Mr. Shahidi shared, there has been an increase, each year of the number of students overall that Maryland is serving. But again, if you look at, to your point, the population increase in Maryland over time in terms of the autism population and those that would benefit from the services has continued to increase, 100, 200%, over time. And so I think a collective effort, even as a school system across, in Prince George's, and even joining with other school systems about the benefits of the program and really, contacting our elected officials to increase that budget, I think is important.
Yeah, great question, Ms. Porterfield, and great comment as well. One question I have is, because this is, I guess, linked to Medicaid some sort of way, I got to ask this question. If you apply for the autism waiver, if you have an ABLE account for your child, does that affect the decision that they make on the autism waiver?
No, they've considered able accounts and educational savings accounts as not applicable.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I actually had a dad ask me that question a week or two ago, and I just wanted to confirm that. I reached out to the person, Kelly Nelson at Maryland Able, and she gave me the answer, but I just wanted to make sure, to ask it here, just in case we have parents here that don't know that may have Able accounts. So thank you, Joseph.
I hope
Pam
I gave
Talley,
the same answer as the Able folks.
Pam Talley has her hand up. Go ahead, Pam.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let everyone know that I was the one that put in the chat that my kid, my child who we're in Prince George's County, we did qualify at the age of 9. So I do believe I was one of the first ones, but that came from strong community. I'll put through the ARC of Prince George's County to really let me know about the program at that time. And again, please don't wait until your child is, you don't need to wait until the diagnosis. If they tell you to sign up, just sign up. And sometimes you may not really truly understand the full benefit. If you need it, it's better to sign up and to not need it at that time than to wait. I will just say that one of the reasons that we qualified so early, one of the reasons was that there was a group of parents before me who were advocating for the budget at the legislative level with the governor. And so that particular year, there were 100 additional slots that were added. And I can say that I have done the same since then, and advocacy and voices and community and collaboration and numbers really, really matter. So I would be happy to join in with anyone to continue to advocate, because we do need this program for many, many more parents. And the benefit of the program has just been wonderful for my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Talley.
Thanks, man. We got a question in the chat. Are there similar programs in neighboring states like Virginia or District of Columbia?
So I'm not aware of similar programs in either the District of Columbia or Virginia. I do know that other states have an autism waiver program, but they're not all the same. So it varies on scope of age that they serve, limited time in the waiver, things that we don't do in the Maryland Autism Waiver. But as far as District of Columbia and Virginia, I'm not aware of them having one.
Okay. Pam, I think someone has a question for you in the chat. It says, I'm assuming it's for you. It says, for the mom who just spoke, how long were you just like going on the list or joining or waited on the wait list?
I was on the waiting list for 6 years. It was a while, but I put him on the list when he was 3. And at that time, I didn't know whether or not I would need the service. But yes, he was on the waiting list for 6 years.
And Ms. Talley, you've been in
Yes.
for many years, so
I have.
the wait has grown since you've been part of the program, and
Yes.
now their state is trying to whittle it down a little bit, and,
Yes.
and they do keep adding.
Yes, they do keep adding.
Yep.
They do
I
keep
think that's
adding.
an important point too. And I encourage all of our parents on here to take advantage of, to start thinking of the transition at the ECC level. If you go to ECC and do the autism waiver and start thinking about all the transition services and benefits that you can start applying for, apply for them early, because you don't want to be, because high school comes quick and high school finishes quick. Then next thing you know, you have a child that's going to high school and you haven't really applied for anything, and all of a sudden, when you start applying for it, time starts to move a little bit slow in terms of the approval process, but their education and their transition keeps going, at a high rate. And so you want to make sure that as soon as possible, as early as possible, apply for all these services, like Pam did, apply for them early. I know another parent that applied for autism waiver. I think she applied for it when her daughter was right around the same age, 2 or 3. and she finally got it. She was able to get in-home care. It took about 6 or 7 years, I think it was. But still, don't wait until they're in high school or even middle school. I would do it once you go to ECC. I would start the process then for all the transition services.
Sure, and even Mr. Sampson, even earlier, if they know about it, right? To get on the registry list, you simply just need name and telephone number and address. That's it. So get on it, and the wait will figure everything else out after the wait is up. So absolutely good advice. Do not wait to get on the registry list.
Yeah. And my wait would have been longer had someone not advocated for me to add those additional slots. And so I'm there. I'm lending my voice to it, and I hope to have others to join us during that legislative season. We need to add more slots.
Agreed. So any more questions from our parents on here? No more questions? Really?
I do have one more question. This is Ms. Porterfield.
Okay.
Has there ever been a time where a parent has applied on behalf of their student and then they've been on that wait list and aged out?
Have they
Of
aged
receiving a
out
waiver?
while on the wait list?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That happens on a regular basis. Sure. It's a long wait. And if a child has been on it, it gets on it at 15 with an 8-year wait, the math just doesn't work out, and they end up not being able to access the program.
Yeah, I think Ms. Porterfield, that's why, it's important to get on there as early as possible. Like I said, at ECC level, once you're at ECC and just put them on the list then.
Sure.
Because that time will keep on ticking. And like Joseph said and shared with, and like Pam also said, that list is steadily growing each year. And obviously the slots are not being given in a timely fashion, and it calls for advocacy for additional slots. So that list is getting longer and longer and longer each year. And so it's important to start early and start that process early.
And I would say if you have a 15, 16-year-old that you think needs to be put on the registry, just do it anyway. That the numbers will show at the state level that there needs to be action. That kid may not ever get an opportunity to apply for the autism waiver, but that wait list number would grow.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the numbers will show up, and when advocacy starts, those numbers can be used as a linchpin to say, hey, this is why we need more slots, because not only are we getting our younger kids on this list that have to wait 6, 7, 8 years, we also have students that are in their teens that are getting on this list that are aging out before they even get services or able or eligible or qualified for it. And so, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, Joseph. Thank you for that point.